And Excellency, we can share through the Minister of Health here that what we are doing for the coronavirus to make sure that measures will.
The incoming Alma chair, and in order to maximize impact and to accelerate malaria elimination on our continent, the disease, we can meet the bold and ambitious targets set to introduce sub-regional scorecards for review and action, youth, that we mobilize sufficient funding, African Union annual summit, but unfortunately,
as an African Leaders Malaria Alliance Chair. Excellency, the African
clear action plans, and has also been involved.
You spoke about local manufacturing of medicines, and I will not miss this opportunity, Your Excellency, to advocate.
Thanking our partners, all our partners, and especially the Alma fraternity, whose chair I assume for not zero malaria starts with me campaign that the King established with distinction.
Congratulate and to commend the work of His Majesty King Mswati III.
Zero malaria starts with me.
Yeah. Let me convey the greetings of His Excellency Musa Faki Muhammad and
Alliance. I'm very pleased that I am assuming this leadership role for an organization that this is a delayed press conference because it was supposed to have happened in Addis Ababa during the African Union annual summit. But unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances and the loss of our second president, we were unable to travel. And I want to begin by thanking our partners, all our partners, and especially the Alma fraternity, whose chair I assume for not being able to have attended the handover ceremony. But all the same, as the incoming chair of the Africa Leaders Malaria Alliance, I'm very pleased that I am assuming this leadership role for an organization that has had, over the years, a very strong advocacy and is on the front line of advocating, ensuring accountability, clear action plans, and has also been involved in resource mobilization to combat malaria across the African continent. I do believe that with accelerated action and new models to deal with the disease, we can meet the bold and ambitious targets set in the catalytic framework to end AIDS, TB, and to eliminate malaria in Africa by the year 2030. I want to, at this stage, take this opportunity to congratulate the outgoing chair, His Majesty King Mswati III of the Kingdom of Eswatini, for the unparalleled leadership that he has shown during his time at the helm. His Majesty kept malaria high on the political and development agenda, and by the end of 2019, 12 countries on the African continent had launched the African Union Zero Malaria Starts With Me campaign that the King established with distinction. I believe His Majesty established an End Malaria Fund in the Kingdom of Eswatini and presented 2 annual Africa Malaria Progress Reports to the Assembly of the African Union Heads of State and Government, and played an active role in advocating for the full replenishment of the Global Fund to end AIDS, TB, and malaria. However, while significant progress has been made, Africa continues to bear the malaria burden. 93% of global cases That's about 213 million. And 94% of the global deaths, about 380,000, are on our continent. Accelerated action is therefore needed, particularly in the 10 high-burden AU member states that account for 67% of global malaria cases and 62% of deaths. These are mainly Nigeria, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Uganda, Cote d'Ivoire, Mozambique, Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, Angola, and Tanzania. To defeat malaria, we need to ensure that we increase the engagement of women, children, and youth, that we mobilize sufficient funding, including from domestic, public, and private sector, and address the threat of stagnation of donor funding so as to ensure that we fill the current financing gap of around $2.5 to $3 billion annually. We must also address climate change, which is impacting mosquito breeding sites and leading to increased epidemics. We must also increase the use of data and technology to drive impact and change. We too need to address insecticide resistance and the threat of drug resistance, which is also leading to increased costs of new commodities. And lastly, to increase the local manufacturing of malaria commodities in Africa. Currently, local manufacturing capacity is very limited due to lack of active ingredients from the continent, weak procurement and trade policies, and lack of harmonized regulatory regimes. As the incoming Alma chair, and in order to maximize impact and to accelerate malaria elimination on our continent, I want to state today that my main focus will be the following key priorities. I want to work with regional economic communities to engage heads of state and government, to address key challenges, but also to provide solutions to them. This will include the use of innovation and technology, to introduce sub-regional scorecards for review and action by heads of state and government, to share lessons learned and best practices, and to use awards for excellence at sub-regional level to recognize good performance. To address the resource gap, I will strive to establish at least 15 national end malaria councils and funds to boost high-level multi-sectoral engagement and advocacy and enhance domestic resource mobilization, including from the private sector of the continent. End malaria councils and end malaria funds are very important country-owned mechanisms to enhance county-level prioritization of malaria. I also believe that we need to create an Alma Youth Advisory Group, which I'm calling the Malaria Army, working with existing youth leaders from the various youth structures in Africa to champion political and resource commitments to promote innovation, research, and development, as well as create a cadre of malaria advocates and champions. We also need to support African Union member states to enhance digitization and to use real-time malaria data at various levels. This, I believe, will enhance the sharing and transparency of the country malaria scorecards for accountability and action, and promote African-led malaria research and development, leveraging on existing African research institutions. The aim of this strategy is to ensure that all our citizens in all spheres of life and at all levels are aware of the malaria situation and are also empowered to act. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, in closing my remarks, I urge all of us to heed our clarion call that zero malaria starts with me.
This year, 2010, Excellency, marks the beginning of a decade to end malaria, which means that we have only 10 years to end malaria. Your Excellency, according to the World Health Organization's latest report in 2019, basically, in 2018, in Africa, we had 213 million cases of malaria in Africa, which represented 93% of the global figures. And in terms of death, we had 380,000 deaths on the continent, which represents 94% of the global figures. Your Excellency, those figures speak for the challenge that we have and for what we all need to do together. Interestingly, since 2010, a lot of progress has been made in the fight against malaria. The numbers dramatically reduced, went down. We reduced the number of cases by 22%. We reduced the death, the malaria mortality by 43%. Unfortunately, over the past 3 years, that progress is stalling. So we saw a tremendous improvement, but now that progress is really stalling. And it is because of the countries that are known as the high burden countries, Your Excellency. And I know you know them, we talked about them. So the priorities that you just shared with all of us, the strategy that you just shared with all of us, Your Excellency, is designed to address some of the challenges that we're facing. You are right on the spot. We need additional resources to fight, to continue this fight and to eliminate malaria for the next 9 years and 9 months. The good news is we successfully replenished the global fund with the $14 billion and 200 million, but there is still a gap to close according to the work that we've been doing with countries looking at the strategic plans. There is a gap of about $2.5 billion that still needs to be closed. And some of the tools that you mentioned there, the End Malaria Funds and End Malaria Councils are specifically designed to help address such issue. Last year, I had the opportunity with my colleagues from Alma here and the commissioner to attend the launch of the End Malaria Fund in Eswatini with King Mswati III. So on the very same day that End Malaria Fund was launched, $700,000 were mobilized. And again, that is designed to involve everyone, including private sector. So it helps in mobilizing domestic resources from the public sector, from the private sector. It is a great advocacy tool. It is, and also a great accountability tool. So we're very happy to see that it's part of your schedule and count on you to help move that along. And we're very delighted to see that data is at the top of your agenda. We're happy to see that about 40 countries today have developed country-owned national malaria control and elimination scorecards. So it is our hope that we will be able to use real-time data to guide investment, track performance, and bring corrections where we need to bring correction. Last time I met you, when we talked about some of the things that you wanted to do, I appreciated your energy and your enthusiasm for technology. So we count on you to deploy technology in the use of data in Africa, digitalizing data to make sure we're able to use real-time data and we have continent-wide visibility on what is happening, Your Excellency. And also, the upcoming African Union Summit. Your Excellency, as you probably know from the very same World Malaria Report, the latest World Malaria Report, in pregnancy, malaria causes, unfortunately, 10,000 maternal deaths in a year and 200,000 neonatal deaths, not to mention the morbidity related to malaria in pregnancy. So the report confirmed that malaria continues to be a disease of poverty, and unfortunately, pregnant women and under 5 years old children continue to be the victim, the largest proportion of the population hit with malaria.
We are looking forward to working with you to advance advocacy, action, resource mobilization, and accountability on the continental and the global stage. Excellency, I would like also to congratulate and to commend the work of His Majesty King Mswati III, the Kingdom of Eswatini, for his strong leadership and position for defeating malaria, as demonstrated by the great achievements on the domestic scene as well as the continental and global stage during his tenure as an African Leaders Malaria Alliance Chair. Excellency, at the African Union Commission, we have our policies in place, Your Excellency. We have our continental framework, which is the Continental Health Policy for Africa, 2016-2030. And we have the catalytic framework to end AIDS, TB, and malaria, 2016-2030, which is the relevant framework for this press conference. And Excellency, we have different programs, we have different initiatives, we have advocacy campaigns, and the last campaign that we are implementing with Rollback Malaria is the Zero Malaria campaign. It starts with me. It's a very important advocacy campaign, and we would like in your tenure to see that this campaign, it will cover the 55 member states of Africa. We are now only covered, the campaign is launched in 12 countries, but our ambition is to make sure that it will cover the whole continent, starting with the most affected countries or the countries with high burden, malaria burden countries, the 10 countries you just mentioned, Your Excellency. Also, while the targets in the catalytic framework to end AIDS, TB, and malaria in Africa by 2030 are very bold and ambitious, I am encouraged by the significant progress that is being made as highlighted in the African Union Malaria Progress Report. We should continue the big push for new funding initiatives with a focus on domestic financing, increased roles for the private sector, invest in the new innovations and tools, and above all, maintain the political commitment, shared responsibility, and global solidarity that we enjoy in the malaria fight. And Excellency, by having you as a chair, we will have the opportunity to report back to the African Union Summit. And this will give us the opportunity to have a renewed political commitment through you, Your Excellency, and this is our biggest strong, actually, advocacy we make is during the summit and during the meetings that we have in Addis Ababa. Excellency, let me end my statement by commending what is being done on the African Union level, that now we have created specialized technical agencies. In January 2017, Your Excellency, Africa Center for Disease Control is being launched by the African Union heads of states and governments in Addis Ababa. 3 years down the road now, we have this Africa CDC as a functioning technical institution of the African Union. So we are moving from the area of just adopting policies and adopting decisions to the practical area of implementing ourselves. And this is a lesson learned from the Ebola outbreak in the West African countries. We found out that we don't